Hi. Hi,
We did it.
We did it. So everyone, we're sorry we're late. I assure you that we did our best to show up on time, but it turns out that StreamYard was having a bit of a time, or my Chrome was. I rebooted Chrome and I rebooted StreamYard, and now we're fine, but sorry we're late. We were here. We've been here a long time. As usual, technical difficulties.
The age-old tech support, right? Just like turn it off and back on.
It's so true. It's so true, Scott. But okay, so let's start. So welcome to my stream. I am Tanya Janka. I am the author of Alice and Bob Learn Secure Coding. And I decided when I wrote this book that I would do the same thing that I did with my last book, Alice and Bob Learn Application Security, and do a live stream for each chapter and record essentially a lesson or a lecture. And I did this because basically universities, there's a whole bunch of them, and I wanted to get this taught in as many places as I could, and I can only, it turns out, be in one place at a time, which, Scott, that's terrible. Yeah, I know you suffer from that flaw as well.
I need to clone myself to solve this problem.
Right? And so I'm a software developer turned application security person who then started teaching secure coding. And so I wrote a book about it. That is me. Scott, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Scott Helme. I like things that I've done. I founded securityheaders.com. I founded Report URI.com. I blog on application security, web security. Yeah, like I, started out penetration testing and then became a consultant, and kind of like, I do some kind of like secure coding education, more on like the offensive security side. But yeah, like pretty rounded cybersecurity topics.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Scott. And thanks for coming and joining me.
No problem.
So I feel like, so I was supposed to have a post go on socials saying that we're live, except for guess what? I accidentally changed it. So we changed the date. And so it is actually pointing people for Friday. So I'm just
going to tweet it now. We could live tweet this, right?
Yep. So I am going to just open that post up now and edit it and just do it today. So we're live right now. Actually, yeah. So I just need to get the YouTube link.
And then I can give you a... What are we doing? Wait, is it tweeting anymore or is it Xing? What are we doing?
I don't know what it's called now. I'm not sure anymore. But if you could find the link and put it in the chat for me, Scott, then I can start introducing the chapter, the YouTube link.
I will search.
So it's in your email. So this chapter is called Improving. And what this chapter is about is it is the introductory chapter to agnostic secure coding advice. There's a lot of different things that we need to do that apply to every single programming language in the world. Like if you're going to build software, you need to have these things. I have 3 chapters that are agnostic in this book, and then I get very specific. I talk about Java, JavaScript, Python, etc. I cover 10 languages and I think 8 frameworks later in the book. And so this is the book. Dun, dun, dun. And the first section, did you find the link, Scott? Or am I going to
go? It's in the chat for you. I got it.
Did you put it in the comments? Or where did you put it so that I can get it?
In the chat here in the StreamYard.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. All right.
There's a private one.
No, I got it. I got it. Thank you. Also, people, you are allowed to ask questions to us in the chat. So what you do is you make a comment on wherever you're watching it. Join Scott Helme and I right now to talk about my latest book. There we go. And I'm going to put a capital on your name, Scott, and it's going to be better. And post now. Posted. There we go. We're all set. Sorry about that, everyone. We changed the date of this event, and there's some confusion, and it's my fault. But if you want to post a question to us, you just put a comment. So if you're on Twitch, if you're on YouTube, if you're on LinkedIn, There you go. Perfect. Okay. So first I wanted to talk about database security. So database security, if you happen to be following along in the book, starts on page 56. But essentially, so Scott, you've been reading chapter 3. I have 4 perspectives in my book about database security. So a lot of times when people think software development for databases, they just think, well, I'd better avoid SQL injection. And yes, we definitely want you to do that. But I feel there's more parts. Do you want to talk about some of the parts, or do you want me to just talk about all like the 4 parts and then we'll go into each one? Or
I can definitely, when we get to the SQL injection part, because that's in one of my courses, so I'm very kind of handy at that. And then also like the privilege levels with access from the application. I'm definitely happy to weigh in there as well.
Awesome. So to start, basically, databases are servers, and we need to protect those. They live on networks. We need to protect it there. They host database software. We need to protect that. And then they house data. And then we want to protect and label and classify that data. So there's sort of 4 different angles that I think we need to take if we're going to try to protect a database. And so basically, yeah, the way that I look at this is, so if you're a software developer, like, do you need to secure the whole network? No, you don't. Do you necessarily have to update the database software? Probably not. But you probably are in charge of the data to a certain extent, and certainly like the layout of the database and like which tables and all of those things. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I think the cloud, the cloud takes away like a huge amount of our responsibilities in terms of, like I think the network layer was abstracted away from us a really long time ago. And then even database versions and software updates and things were probably abstracted away still a reasonable amount of time ago. It's kind of up to you whether you think running your own servers and doing your own patching and things is a good idea or a bad idea, but I definitely don't. I'm like, I want to have the cloud, air quoting again, to take away a lot of these responsibilities from me, to focus on the things that I can do and that I'm good at.
Oh yeah, doing every single thing yourself, 2 thumbs down, would not recommend. I also don't change my tires myself every winter and every summer. I get someone else to do it that knows how to align the wheels nicely. Right? Yeah. I had a friend do it last year, and it turned out he put on one of my wheels backwards. I didn't even know there was a direction, and it turned out he didn't either. And I kept getting, like, my wheel kept going, and I didn't know why. And so it's nice when friends do you favors, but I'm learning a lot. One of the things in the book that I talk about is about, how do I word this? Like, backups and rollbacks. When I joined the Canadian government, like I went from private industry, and I'd already been working in private industry like maybe 8 years at that point. And this database team was like, you have to write a rollback script. So I would have to write a script about what I wanted to change in the database for them to review, but I'd also have to write a rollback script. And I'm like, I don't want to roll back. Why do I have to do that? And then one day my script did an unintended thing. And then we rolled it back, and I was like, well, this is great. That's really helpful. Hello, Darshan. Thank you for coming. And so then in one of my other stories in the book, I talk about basically, so Scott, maybe something like this has happened to you, but I was working somewhere, and the entire organization there was some sort of incident, and we lost all of our work for like 3 days. And unfortunately, the database team was like, well, we've never rolled back. We think it'll take about a month. And so the entire organization lost, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 days work. It doesn't really matter, but there's 2,000 people that lost their work for 2 days. And I remember saying to my boss, and I was like, okay, great. So there's 3 those 3 guys that are in charge of backups that we have. clearly we don't need them anymore. Can I hire new programmers? He's like,
It's so common though, right? To not have, or, you know, not for the procedures to not be kind of tested or exercised regularly. And then when you come to depend on them because no one was checking them, it was like, oh, actually the backup process was kind of like not running and nobody noticed because we don't, like, I've heard so many different variants of that story where ultimately like there's a process in place that's supposed to save you from this. And unfortunately something somewhere wasn't as expected and it's not going to help you now.
it's so true. Like, have you ever run into something like that where there was some sort of database not so good situation and it was memorable for you? It's okay if there wasn't, but
not directly in databases because I've been running kind of my own company for I think it's like 14 years this year or something, some really long time like that. But at companies before, the closest thing that I've come from my own personal experience was file storage, and it was like all fully backed up and redundant, and everything is great, but it was only like backed up against like if the file storage server failed, then it's like, oh well, then we could just go to the backup. But if somebody actually like deleted something, the backup would then delete it because it was effectively mirroring what was like. So it's like a very similar concept where you're like, oh yeah, it's like, it's like we have backups if the server sets on fire, not if you like delete the file and then 24 hours later it's gone anyway. And that's a really big misunderstanding of what the backup is for and like what does the backup protect you against.
God, I literally had the same thing happen and the RAID server replicated.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, it's working as intended. It's just not doing what you wanted, right? Like,
well, what happened with our RAID servers, like we had quadruple, we had like 4 levels, and one of the drives failed and erased itself, and then the other ones copied it.
They're like, oh, we should follow. Yeah, it's an easy thing to get right nowadays. Again, going back to air quote the cloud, like we just so we use Azure storage and we just use their redundant storage facility. And then we also have geo-redundant storage. So if like North America disappears, we have another copy of our data in another continent as well. But yeah, you then have to set like retention policies where, if a file or a record is deleted, do you want that immediately replicating to all of the backups? Or do you want to do like a soft delete and then have 30 days where you can go recover the record? And I think that's like a really commonly misunderstood thing is, like, do you want it to be a live replica? Or when you say backup, do you want to be able to go back to 30 days ago and do a restore to, 1st of May or something?
Version control.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. So the next section, so for everyone that's just joining us, because we're having more and more people join, you can ask questions by posting a comment. So then Scott and I will get it and we can answer if you want. And what we're doing is we're reviewing chapter 3 of my latest book. And we're just talking about databases, but the next thing is files. But I briefly want to talk about using production data in lower environments and how I want everyone to stop doing that. And Scott and I are not on the first year of our careers. We've been doing this a little while. So we've seen some things. And many times as a dev, I've gone in to, a dev environment and it's all production data. It's a copy of prod that's like 6 months old or a year old. And they're like, so it's not really production data anymore. I'm like, yeah, my employee record's still in there and I'm pissed. And so a thing that we're supposed to do is called masking data, which is anonymizing it. So switching it all around. So the records are still good and you can still test the software. It still makes sense. But now I'm not named Tanya Janka. Maybe I'm named Tanya Helme. And maybe, I'm not a programmer. I'm a DBA now. And maybe I don't live in Canada. I live in Paris. That sounds pretty good. And all these other things, right? Hello. And I feel like now that we have AI and we can have it make up fake data for us so easily. So there's like a couple of tools that have come out like Bogus for .NET and MS SQL databases that will create fake data for you. But now with the AI, you can have it make some fake data and it can do okay from what I understand. If you ask it to make the fake data multiple times, it will make almost the same data set, apparently. So it's not, it can only kind of create once, if that makes sense. And then it apparently is just like human beings where it's not all that random, but it can make a fake data set for you. Scott, do you have thoughts on using production data in non-production environments and why it might not be awesome?
It's just a terrible idea, isn't it? It's one of those things where it will be absolutely fine until it isn't, and then you will just wish that you hadn't done it. And there's a whole bunch of different angles that you can come at this from, right? Like I've heard people try and say, well, look, at like it's our company, like we already have our customers' data, so what, you know, like we already know that your name is Tanya Janka, so what, like, so who cares, right? Like it's the same company. It's this, and the problem is, you know, dev and pre-prod and QA environments are generally like far more broadly accessible to members of staff within an organization than production. So at our company, like there's absolutely like zero test data, and developers don't have access to the production database. For a very, very long time, we've had all the scripts and test tools in place to just, you know, like when we run our automated test suite, it just like burns through, generates a bunch of random names and creates like fake users in the database during the test suite. And then obviously everything just gets dropped and tossed away at the end. So every single time it's always random. It's a bit of a pain because you have to keep everything up to date for things like that. So I do kind of, you know, I can kind of see where people are coming from, and it's like, oh, well, we'll just like rip off a copy of production. But it's one of those things where it's like convenience now and you'll pay for it in the future. And it's better to just do it right from the start. So yeah, all of our test analysts produce their own, you know, faked data. And to me, it's not worth it. You know, it might be a shortcut in the now, but at some point in the future, it's definitely going to not be worth saving that tiny little bit of time, unfortunately. But people, I see the temptation, you know, it's like, oh, it's fine, we'll just go take a copy of the production table and update the test environment, right? And yeah, I think I'm always trying to be cautious from like our security perspective. It's like so obvious to us, right? And I always try and kind of take a step back and think, okay, but maybe it's less obvious to people that don't have like a lengthy background in InfoSec. So I can see how people get there, and I can see where the temptation comes from. But it is definitely long run. My view is always, you know, for the long term. Long term, it's not worth it. It's a recipe for disaster.
Well, think about this, Scott. So I've had a lot of people say, oh, well, we trust our employees. And I said, great. So this week, when you do payroll, I want you to take it all out as cash. And I want you to bring it to the cafeteria and just put it on a table and tell the employees to just take what's actually theirs. And then I want you to leave. And they're like, what? And I'm like, do you not trust your employees? Because your production data has huge value, right? Like sensitivity wise, they could sell it. There's so many things they could look up and see how much, you know, their colleague makes, etc. Which I actually had one of my staff do once. We had a meeting with someone, and after, one of my staff was like, I can't believe that person gets paid this. They're such a not great employee. Let's say that that's the word he used. And I was like, you can't just go look, how did you, because production, they didn't have access, and turned out we had a copy. So, and it was 6 months old, so he could see how much money that person had made. And then we had to have this huge discussion about privacy, and it was not okay. And so many things like that happen all the time. But other things
comes up a lot as well, doesn't it? Like, you know, and trust is such an overloaded word, but I had this recently where, you know, like we have a marketing firm helping us do some things, and they want to track, you know, like new subscribers and stuff, or they want to get access to HubSpot or something, or they want to see Stripe to be like, well, how many new subscribers did we get this week? Like all perfectly like reasonable things. And it's like, oh, just give us an account and just give us like the admin role, and then we can just see everything. And I was like, no. and immediately the question from like non-security kind of experts, not to say that in a bad way, but like they're not security experts, right? And that's perfectly acceptable. But like they're like, what, do you not trust us? And I was like, it's nothing to do with trusting you or not trusting you. That wasn't a part of the equation at all. To me, it's just least privilege on the way in. It's like, you can't lose what you don't have. So if you don't have all of the data, then you can't lose all of the data because you never had it in the first place. If our marketing company or some other contractor or something has a data breach or an incident, if they didn't have all of our data, they can't lose all of our data. And it goes back to developers with production in test. Well, if you didn't have all the prod data in the QA environment, because lots of companies I work with have their QA and UAT environments publicly accessible on like a subdomain or something, right? And it's like, well, these are quite literally like not production grade material, and they may have new features that haven't been security tested with vulnerabilities. And then it's like, whoopsie, our production database was ultra uber secure and locked down, but our test database, which has all the production data, just got popped. So yeah, like, you've got to kind of throw away the conversation about like, do you not trust them? It's like, it's nothing to do with trust. Like, I didn't even think about, do I trust you or not trust you? The answer is you don't need it. So you don't get it. And that's nothing to do with you as a person or your trustability or whatever it might be. It's just, you don't need it to perform your function, so you don't get it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, people get offended when you say that you don't trust them. But to me, to trust someone that's not a computer scientist with a computer science problem is hard. The same with, so like, I'm handy, and I've switched a toilet in my house 4 times. And I flipped 2 of my houses when I was younger. Like, I renovated them for years and sold them for profit. And like, I've done a lot. Like, I've done like part of my roof before. I've built decks. I've done lots of things. And one of my friends insisted on helping me with one of the toilets. And it was like the first toilet that I did. And there's a wax ring and you put it down, and then he lifted it a bit and put it down. And I was like, oh shit, no, we need a new wax ring. And for those of you that have ever switched a toilet, it is worth the $4 to get a new one. However, he insisted, no, it was fine. And I was less experienced. So I said, okay, yeah, it flooded the ceiling of my kitchen, and because it leaked, because you can't move it. You put it down and you never touch it again. Or you pay $3 or $4 and you get a new wax ring. But I had trusted him, but neither of us were experts at that. Right. And so, giving a marketer complete control over a system that is not an area that's of their expertise is not that like you think they're a bad person. It's like, I think you're not an expert, and we both know that to be true. And so should I give you complete control that you don't require? Yeah, of course.
And you get it from all, like the marketing team, the development team. It's like like our senior leadership team. It's like, well, they don't get access to production. They can't push code. They can't see, the production database. It's
so about that, Scott. Now there are CEOs pushing code because of the AIs, but we should not talk about that.
Let's not fall in that rabbit hole, hey.
So briefly, I wanted to talk about, so the next section's about files and about protecting files and file uploads and all those things. And our source code's really valuable, Scott. So I know that a lot of places will do open source code, and that's okay, that they're okay with people seeing their intellectual property, right? But I think that software developers aren't always aware of just incredibly how valuable their code is, and that protecting the IP is really important. But also, like, if you lose that code,
done.
Have you worked somewhere, Scott, where they've lost the code? Because I have worked at places where we have lost the entire code repository twice, and it sucked.
I've worked somewhere where, for whatever reason, somebody was doing like a significant amount of work on their device and had never pushed it. And that, like, I never understood that. I've never seen someone lose everything, because they've always had at least some kind of like centralized source management. But I have literally heard the story. And I wonder if it's almost like a dog ate my homework. It's like, hey, you're due to have built this feature. And they're like, oh, no, I spilled coffee on my laptop and I never pushed the code remote.
Oh, no. I mean, like, so when I worked in the Canadian government at a place that will remain unnamed, we all had to deal with this department called Shared Services Canada, or SSC, and they would give us servers and act very much so like the cloud, but for the government. However, they wouldn't give you servers. So you would put in a request, and then 4 months later, you still wouldn't have one. And so what we would do sometimes is go around the office and grab computers and use them as servers, because they wouldn't give us access to the IT things we needed. And even sometimes you would give them money and then they still wouldn't give you the thing, because the conservative government would then cut their budget. So then they didn't have money to fulfill the thing that they had signed contracts to do. It was quite a disaster, and it still sucks for people there. And I'm sorry for all of them. And so basically my boss was like, build out this network, Tanya, for this project where they just keep not. So we had 11 consultants, and I built out their computers. I made like a whole Active Directory and everything. And I made a Team Foundation server because it was back in the day, and we set everything all up. And they were in essentially what used to be our kitchen working. And they'd taken over the kitchen as that for that project, because like we just couldn't get the things we needed, and we had projects to do, right? And so here I am at like this big government department taking over the kitchen, running cables. And so there was a guy, and those stories in the book, and it was his job to do backups. And so I just had to set everything up. It was actually his project that he was leading with the consultants and stuff. But I can do anything. So my boss was like, go do it. And so I set all the things up, and then I'd asked him, like, you're still doing backups? And I remember him showing me a thing of DVDs and saying like, yep, nightly backups. And so after 5 months, one day I see this other guy walk by, and there's a sign on the server that says, this is Tanya's server. Don't you touch it unless you talk to Tanya.
Do not turn off.
And he's carrying it. I'm like, get back here. And so this was where the RAID had copied over top of the other ones and malfunctioned. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he's like, so I'm just like, so I've already copied over it. I'm doing this other thing with it. And he like just took my server away, and I made him give it back. Anyway, so the original guy had never made any backups, it turned out.
And
5 months of code for 11 employees gone.
We had, this is going back, gosh, I want to say like 10, 15 years or something. And like the sticker on the plug that says like, do not turn off, reminded me of this incident. And I can't remember what piece of software we were using, but there was a piece of software where you had to run the license server locally. And, somebody like set up the software on this old computer in the corner plugged in, and it was running like the license server that would allow the software for all of the staff to work. And you had to put like the license file on the license server. And then somebody just put a sticker on the plug that said, do not unplug. And it's like, just leave this thing turned on forever. And the person that had done that had not like backed up the license file that was on this machine. And, one day it's just not working. Right? And there's no monitor or mouse or keyboard plugged in. So it's like, well, everybody's software is broken. Go check the license server. And it's like, oh, it's off. We'll turn it on. But then it never came up. So you plug the monitor in, and it turns out like the hard drive's died. It's not booting. And then it's like, oh, well, we'll just have to like get a fresh Windows PC, install the license server, and then put the license file back on. And it's like, okay, so who has a copy of that? And it's like, the guy that did that left like 7 years ago and doesn't work here anymore. And no one has a copy, and the company's gone bust, so we can't get it. It's that was pretty wild week. But that was not like we lost a lot of work. That was like nobody can do any more work because the license server is broken. That's such an old thing. But yeah, like the license server is broken.
Oh my gosh. Like, speaking of old things, like when the guy had copied over the other things, so he had copied over the hard drive that had failed. And I was like, why would you do that? Like, that's mine. And there was a sign on it that was like, and it was all caps. It was like, do not touch without Tanya's permission. She'll come get you. And I was like the lead dev and had been for a long time. Right. So I was like, everyone was, properly terrified of me. And he was like,
terrified of you when you're not the lead dev. I don't know what you mean.
And he's like, what would you have done with it? I'm like, put it in the freezer, you dummy. Because that's what you do with with solid state drives, that doesn't work. But back in the day, you could put a hard drive in the freezer and bring it back to life. And then I could have got the code off, because I used to do that forensically when I was young. And he's just like, oh, I'm an idiot. I'm just like, everyone's out to get me. Like, because I'm like, I can recover it. I can do this. I could do that. And then, Okay, so another part of the book that we talk about is file uploads. And this is the thing that, Scott, I bet you agree with. If we can buy a system that is tried, tested, and true, that can do a good job of authentication, authorization, file uploads, whatever the thing is, cryptography, then instead of writing this from scratch and reinventing the wheel, ideally we would buy, and by buy, I mean you don't necessarily need to pay. Like if you want to use Linux or another open source product that is a high quality product, we should do that. And then if not, we should borrow. And then if not, we should build custom. And by borrow, I mean use the thing in your framework, use a well-known library. So in the government, I would call other departments and be like, I see you did this. Can I have your code? Reuse code from another group where you work, et cetera, et cetera. And then lastly, like write custom yourself. And with file uploads, it's complicated.
There's so much stuff. We unfortunately have to do, I try not to do anything that's difficult, right? Like unless we have to do it, it's like keep the product as simple as possible, keep the code as simple as possible. But we do unfortunately have to deal with files provided by the client, the user, the customer, however you want to refer to them. And you have to treat all like client provided data as potentially hostile. And unfortunately, we're in like the worst case scenario because the standard format for some of the data that we ingest is a zipped XML file. It's literally like pick the two worst things in the world for handling file uploads, and it's XML and zip. So we literally as a company, we have to handle, because of the standard, zipped XML files. And I was like, that is literally like the worst combination of things in the world. So yeah, it's like, I'm like, go find me like the best library that will do XML parsing. Go find me the best library that will handle zip files and not explode my servers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would never write that code myself, at least not in, at bulk, like the handling stuff on our side, sure. But yeah, like the unzipping bit, off to a library that knows how to do this. It's like, okay, parsing some XML, off to a library that knows how to do this.
Yes.
Yes.
It
I don't
reduces
trust Scott
risk
to do that.
Yeah. In the book, I also talk about if we're going to do file uploads. So first of all, be like Scott. Second of all, like in general, just be like Scott. But also, the Canadian government, the Communication Security Establishment Canada, which is like our cyber folks, they created a thing called Assembly Line, and it's free. And it's very similar to VirusTotal. So you upload, but you host it yourself. So VirusTotal, you upload your files and then they keep them.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're doing with them. But with Assembly Line, you host it and you upload your files, and the Canadian government never gets them. And it tells you this looks good, this is definitely bad, or as they say it, this is sketch. And then if it's sketchy, they invite you to properly, there's a protocol for how to submit a file that has been labeled sketchy. And then you send it to them and they'll analyze it for malware. And if it is dangerous, they'll add a signature. And you get free signature updates. And if you are submitting samples, you're helping secure the entire ecosystem. And all of this is free from Canada for the whole world. I mean, they built it for the other governmental departments, but they then were like, well, we should share this with all Canadians. And then guess what? That means they're sharing it with everyone. And so if you are building a piece of software and you're letting people send you files that need to be uploaded, this is like, if you don't have money to buy a really expensive scanner, like this is a place where you could save some money. And that's actually really cool.
There's definitely an element of, I think it's like a self-serving interest of really big companies in InfoSec where they're like, everything's really expensive and needs licenses and things. And I'm like, do you know what? I bet you could do like 95% of the job without spending any or very little money. And yeah, it's one of the things I keep trying to push a lot. Is like, you don't have to spend a lot of money to be quite good here. Yeah. And 99% of the time, quite good is good enough, right? Like nothing is perfect, nothing is secure, but like you can get a really long way with very little budget. You just have to put a little bit of thought into it.
Oh, I know. In the Canadian government, I had a very small budget. I remember my first AppSec program, my budget looked like this.
Yeah. It's like the loose change in the government's pocket.
Yeah. So if we were going to pick from the following topics, Scott, would you pick us discussing what overflows are, or us discussing deserialization, or us discussing privacy? Which would you choose?
Ooh, I would go privacy and then maybe deserialization if it was for things that I can speak on.
Let's talk about privacy and then we'll go on to errors, because we are going to run out of time. So we can't do every single topic. That is just part of the internet.
Yep.
So in the book, I talk about privacy and I talk about user privacy. I talk about citizen privacy because that's different. I talk about customer privacy because sometimes that's different, because sometimes we have users that aren't customers. And then employee privacy. I wanted to give 2 definitions of privacy that I put in the book because I have some feels about private, and I bet you do too, Scott.
And I am known to have.
Yeah. It's almost like you have built multiple products and companies to protect people's privacy. It's almost like this really, really matters to you. Okay, so first definition from the Oxford Dictionary: privacy, the state of being alone and not watched or interrupted by other people. And not interrupted by other people is really interesting. But another one, Abigail Dubinsky, sorry, Abigail. Privacy is about self-determination and dignity and not just data. And when we are in our own home and we're trying to do something and the whole time on our phone, I can't see the site because there's a privacy statement and I have to accept a bunch of stupid cookie things that I don't actually want to accept, or the website won't work and it won't let me do any of the things I want to do. I'm being interrupted and I'm being watched, and it's not very private. GDPR was supposed to help, but unfortunately we all just, because all of them did it. If only some of them had these really terrible options, maybe we would pick and choose, but all of them suck. Scott, help.
I know. And I live, I was about to say I live in the EU. I used to live in the EU. Now I don't, but we're still subject to all the same rules. And it's just such a good example of something that was like really well intentioned from the governments or the government, and like the whole cookie legislation, because all the annoying cookie banners and pop-ups came pre-GDPR. They're a separate piece of legislation. Okay. And it was just like really well intentioned, and I think ended up doing not only like no good, but then actual harm as well. Because I guarantee like 99% of the people watching this, like they've just seen the pop up and just clicked like the first obvious button and probably not even read it. So we've just trained like billions of people to just click the button to make the thing go away without reading what it says, which is a terrible habit to have from a cybersecurity standpoint. So not only that, but they just don't function. I love it. I don't know if you've ever actually paid attention to these things. It's kind of like a fun, weird hobby of mine, but it's like, you go to a news website or something and it's like, us and our 4,712 partners are processing your data. Like, here is a list of them. And you go through this list and there's literally like 1 million companies on there. And ultimately you kind of have no choice but to just press I accept anyway. It's kind of like, what is like the purpose was to make people more informed or give them a choice, and no one is really any more informed and no one really had a choice anyway, kind of thing. So yeah, it's a bit like I think it should just all be removed. And at least the data regulator here in the UK has now said that they're basically never going to enforce it. They're never going to penalize companies for not adhering to it. So technically you could just remove all your cookie banners now in the UK and not ever actually have to worry about any action being taken. So yeah, like I get, this is why any attempt, people keep saying like, should we have legislation for cybersecurity? And I'm like, yes, like that sounds like a great idea, but no, based on all of my previous experiences of governments trying to legislate things.
Well, guess what, Scott? I have some news for you about Canada.
Oh no, what are you doing?
So for
what have you done, Tanya?
that don't read my newsletter and didn't see it 2 mornings ago. So I did it. So Canada's quaint and cute, just like all the stereotypes are true. And a citizen like me is allowed to start a petition if they get the support of their member of parliament, which I did after enough years. And my petition was that I want the Canadian government and all crown corporations and every organization that sells software to the government to have to follow a secure coding policy. And then obviously I wrote them a policy and sent it to them for free that's based on my book. And I got enough signatures, Scott. And so last week it was tabled in Parliament formally. And so Jeff Kibble, my member of Parliament, got up and read my prayer, as it is called. And he said, she even gave us the thing. So let's talk about it. And so now the Canadian government has 45 days to get back to me and Canada with a formal statement of what Canada's going to do about it. And I really hope it doesn't say, we're going to do nothing. We have other priorities right now. I'm really concerned it's going to say that. But if they do, then I can go around the media and humiliate them some more, which is what I've been doing for years. So many things happened. Like, so in 2021, the CRA lost 2 of my parents' identities on the internet. This made me angry. They changed their terms of service after that because there's a class action lawsuit. So the CRA is the tax office. So it's like the IRS for Canada. I don't know what it's called in the UK, but yeah, if you don't do your taxes, you go to jail. Yeah. So you got to do it. So their terms of service, you don't accept it. You're not accepting their terms of service. You have no choice. You must do this. So that means I'm not actually giving consent because, quite frankly, Sarah, if you're listening, you don't have my consent. And so they changed their terms of service so that they're not legally responsible or liable if they lose your data because, wait for it, Scott, the internet's not a very safe place. And because they did every single possible security thing that they could do to keep your data safe. Well, they have no cookie settings. They don't have content security policy header. They have no security headers. And so I have been writing them letters for years and giving them a good spanking regularly in the media and writing letters to the Prime Minister's office to make them answer me when they don't. I send physical letters, I send emails, I make videos, I write blogs. I'm very annoying. And Scott, I worked there and I wrote their web app security policy. So I know content security policy was in there.
and that's the good thing, right? Like if legislation came from people in industry like you, I would be much happy with it. But in my experience, like all of the legislation that's come through, if we look at our government and look at all the people that are in, the Department of Technology, and I'm like, okay, so what roles have you held in the technology sector? And it's like, oh, I used to be a baker or something. And I'm like, well, I'm not really sure that you should be the person writing our cybersecurity policy for the whole country. So right? I think that my issue with legislation is it's usually coming from politicians and not experts. And the other one is, it should always be a minimum bar that we achieve to exceed rather than a way to do things. And that's often how it comes across as well. It's like, this is the way that we do it. And it's like, no, that's a minimum bar that you should aim to exceed. Not I have achieved the state of completion. So yeah, I think if you get something through that came from someone like you in industry and wasn't written by a politician, I would be a lot happy with that.
So the petition, I wasn't allowed to put technical details in it. I was just allowed to say essentially, state the problem, which we all know. And then what do I want? So I want them to create a policy and a standard, and then the policy that enforces the standard that says you must write secure software with specifics as to how to do so. And then I want CSEC, the cyber folks, to enforce it. And so verification, and they won't be able to verify they can't pen test every site, right? But if it's like, this is the standard, they educate on the standard, they share and you're going to be assessed on it. There are many other things that they assess the software on in the government. And so even if they don't do all 84 things that are in the policy I wrote for them, even if they do 6, it'll be 10 times better than the 0 that is happening on some of them now. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. You've got to start somewhere, and something is better than nothing.
Exactly. And so this is my hope. So don't mess with Tanya, because she will care so much and work for you for free until you do a better job. So there. One of the things in the privacy thing is it says privacy is also about the ability to make choices in private, such that you can avoid harassment, embarrassment, humiliation, and even violence. This is a thing that Cloudflare has had so many complicated things. So Cloudflare is like the front page of the internet. And it's like, are they going to protect this site? Are they not going to protect this site? I've had some interesting discussions with some of their employees about how that's a really hard choice. But like, as someone who has been doxxed and had people harass her, like, I don't want people to know where I live. I want to be able to make statements in public and then not face violence. And when I don't know if you know, Scott, but so I put a post on social media about when I was going to write this book. And I was like, hey, I'm looking for a technical editor. You know, these are the things I'm looking for. And you should be aware, like, this job it's more like a volunteer position. It only pays $1,000 because that's how much my publisher pays. And for those of you that don't know, technical editors are usually unpaid. They're like more than half the time they're paid nothing. So the fact that we do pay something is good. But this isn't my choice. This is the publishing industry. And people started harassing me and writing terrible things to the point where I stopped logging into my social media and had friends check because I was getting like death threats and stuff. And then people made a subreddit to try to figure out where I could live and were trying to literally come find me and physically harm me. And I called the police. The police didn't know what to do. And it was quite awful. And luckily I had good OPSEC at the time. And so they were unable to figure out where I could live. And they were doing this for weeks, Scott. And I tried all sorts of things to get them to stop. And then what happened is a friend of mine that is also a subreddit user, or a subreddit admin, wrote that subreddit admin and they're like, oh, it's freedom of speech. And she's like, you're letting men abuse a woman. You are a piece of, she used choice words that you would find on Reddit. And she bullied him into taking it down. She was like, you're a coward. Give me your home address. I'm going to come visit you. And she like just tore him new buttholes until he took it down. And that is how my harassment ended up stopping, not the police, not like public interest groups trying to help me, not all of my fans writing these people and telling them to stop over for weeks. And like privacy, like my home address should be private if I want it to be, right? And like if someone, Abigail Dubinsky, she talks about like people who have abortions and having those lists get out. That's what her talk was about, that I first was introduced to her work. And like, that's a pretty private choice. A lot of us make very private medical choices that might not be as political as that type of choice, but it's no one's business what medication I choose to take or not take. Right? Like I have a friend that has cancer right now who's refusing treatment and doing a lot of alternative treatments, and that's his choice. And he's allowed to do so with privacy, right? And it's not the choices I would make, but still going to drive him to the hospital later today, right? And like, I feel like so in the book, I talk about this, but basically, if you are a software developer and you're being asked to do a thing where you feel you're violating someone's privacy, I'm not saying you should like quit your job and burn down the building. I am anti-violence. But if you in a meeting say like, I'm really uncomfortable with this, I wouldn't want someone to do that with my data. You saying that out loud can completely change the entire thing for the whole project. Like when I worked at a really big place that will remain unnamed, the marketing team was going to do a project, and it wasn't a privacy violation, but it was, in my opinion, a security disaster. And I was like, if this data was leaked and the way that you're doing this, I feel is insecure. And if it was leaked, it would be quite humiliating for our company that you're doing this stupid thing. And it wasn't a privacy violation, but it was like, it would just be very embarrassing because it was like, you guys are being really dumb. Just to be clear, I don't think all marketers are dumb, but I think those ones were being dumb at that time. And I pointed out, like, this is how the public would feel. this is how I would feel if I am embarrassed. I'd be embarrassed to work here. Like, I don't want you doing that. So not only did they end up not putting their data in this third-party tool that I thought was not, they ended up canning the entire project when I pointed out to them how humiliating it would be. And it turned out lots of staff were like really embarrassed that they were going to do that because we started talking about it and the whole thing got stopped. And that was all just from me like feeling psychologically safe to be able to say the thing. Scott, what are your thoughts on this?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, I just going back to the kind of the start of that with the, the online abuse stuff. I hear these stories and just I don't get it. I'm like, why? Like, what is wrong with people? That's my core kind of thought process. Is just like this sheer like disbelief that people like that have the spare time in their life to do these things. And you just think, wow, you need like way better things to do with your life. Like this, it's just such a bizarre scenario. Like before we started this, like I was just literally kind of like made the passing comment about like don't read the comment section, right? Like, cause I've just had a video go online and it's like it shouldn't really have to be like that, should it? Like, it just doesn't need to be. And I just don't. There's obviously some like fundamental component of human existence that I don't understand why these people exist.
You know what, Scott? Compared to all the other women influencers I know, I am treated significantly better. I kid you not. The things that they tell me, I am so lucky to have fans that are so respectful and kind to me and will tell if someone's mean to me, they'll be like, no. I'm so grateful. But I want all of the women and all the people to be treated well, not just me. And like so many of my fans came to my defense. So many of my fans were like, no, this is not acceptable. So many, like even organizations reaching out, like when I went to Vegas that year, besides Vegas, like immediately greeted me on site and they're like, we want to make sure you're physically safe the entire time that you're in Vegas. Like if you give us your schedule, we'll make sure someone's with you. And like the community really like stepped up and was amazing and wonderful. And a group then reached out to me and told me like, if this ever happens again, like we will handle this like with you and like go through the whole thing with you, which is amazing. But it'd be better if we didn't have to do that. And I think there's some mental health stuff for some people, but there were many people that were part of the subreddit, like 60 to 100 people. And like, who are these people that think this is a good idea, who are amused by this? Like, we, as a society, this is a problem because clearly those people aren't happy and there's something wrong there, right? So that's not the only wrong thing they're doing, right?
And social media is a huge, not even like, necessarily under the strict traditional term of social media, but like, we were talking about earlier, comments on a YouTube video, arguably like not the traditional meaning of social media, but this like mass connectivity or giving people to say things, giving people a platform to say things where it will be heard by many when previously they would probably just be, sat at home on their own and nobody would hear them and we could just be blissfully ignorant to their existence. Whereas now it's very easy to be, quite broadly distributed to a very large audience. And unfortunately, I think the less savory people seem to be able to cut through the noise a bit more and become more prominent as well, which just amplifies the issue.
Yes, oh my gosh, Scott, that's true too. And I get that if a public figure says or does something really awful, that the public wants to respond. But I don't understand how me trying to find a technical editor for my book, and Scott, it was up 2 hours, that post, before I took it down, and I had over 60 people asking very nicely to be my technical editor. And even after I took it down, I received letters for weeks, choose me, choose me. And I ended up finding 3 wonderful human beings who helped me through the whole process. And now we're all friends. And one of them I was already his friend. And it was just like this great project that we got to do together. But it's interesting how like they're like, no one would want to be paid so little. And it's like, Do you
Let them
understand?
choose that. No one asked you.
You understand I'm getting paid less than that, right? I'm getting paid less than that to write the book. Like per hour of work, I'm getting paid way less. I'm getting paid less than minimum wage to write this book. And I'm doing it to try to better the world. Like, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's talk. Do you want to talk about errors, or did you have more comments on privacy?
No, I'd think the closing thing is it's kind of ironic when a lot of these people doing this like abusive online stuff then rely on online privacy, so people don't know who they are. That seems to be like a common thing that I just picked up in this, is like,
Yeah, use your full name. Use your real identity if you're going to say things like that. It's quite rare that people do. Whereas I don't post negative and mean things generally, but I certainly use my full name when I do things. Generally, if I have negative feedback for someone, though, what I do is I send it to them directly privately, and I try to be quite constructive. It's like, oh, I saw you posted this post and it's about open source intelligence gathering, but you use a real woman as your example. And that's really scary for her. And I need you to anonymize this and take down her specific details. That's not okay. And here's why it's not okay, sir. I actually have to do that.
Critical in a constructive way.
Yeah. Yeah. And once he understood how that made the woman feel, and so it was someone from his grade 3 class that he had run into at the grocery store and like saw her and was like, I wonder if I could find her, and like thought it would be so cool to share like the open source intelligence gathering he did, but he shared her and all her private details. And he's like, oh, but that stuff is on the internet. I'm like, no, you just turned her into this big target. And once he understood, he was really embarrassed. And then he changed it and it was fine. And I feel like he learned a super valuable lesson, if that makes sense. And he apparently apologized to her, right? But like, if I had come at it with like, yo, you're a jerk, blah, 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 how well would that go? And if I had done it publicly instead of privately, etc., right?
And I think that's the thing, right? It's like, it depends like what your objective is, and your objective, like looking at that sequence of events from the outside, your objective is clearly to try and change things for the better, rather than, a lot of people nowadays they're just like, how can we tear this other person down or shame them or embarrass? And I'm like, I think there's like a more productive way to get to like a constructive outcome overall. And that's also the way that I try to approach things.
Well, and if we publicly shame the person, do you think they're going to become less extreme? Do you think they're going to suddenly start doing the thing you want? No, they're not. Whereas, me and this guy ended up having like a good conversation, and he did feel sheepish and embarrassed after, but my goal wasn't to try to make him feel bad. My goal was to try to explain from her point of view. And like, he's like, I'll never do that again, ma'am. And I was like, oh, I know. And I'm like, but keep writing blogs, don't stop.
And that's the constructive way to do it. We have this conversation a lot, like in my friend circles, and like one of the other like fields that I'm really interested in is motorsport. And, we have like a really weird similarity of like underrepresentation of women there as well. And, so I see this like come up a lot, and like, how do we deal with this without like, and the other thing as well is for it to not become some like huge virtue signaling thing. Like, I see a lot of people trying to do that, and it feels very self-promotional when they're like, look at me being so amazing. And I'm like, you don't need anyone to look at you for being amazing. Just be amazing. Like, and it's really weird. Like, I see a lot of similarities across two of my huge areas of interest, and I'm trying to take learnings from both sides and cross them over to the other as well. But
that's cool.
It's there's definitely work to be done.
Oh, Scott, it's so true. It's so true. Let's talk about errors. Why are errors important? Why do we need to handle errors? Why can we not just let the global exception handler catch everything, Scott?
Oh, well, like any
Wait.
Oops.
No,
did I just
wait? No, I'm doing things. I am trying to make it so I can spotlight you, and I
just zoomed right in then, and I was like, wow, I'm really big.
You zoomed in? Because I made it so I was zoomed in, and I want to make it so just you are zoomed in. Wait, let me. Can I do, wait. Oh,
Dun, dun, dun. Now I can be
there.
Scott.
Ta-da!
And
Scott
now I
on
can be
errors.
Tanya.
Can you see me or do you see you?
No, I see me.
Okay, perfect.
Now I'm like full screen Scott.
Full screen Scott. Tell us about why we should catch errors and how sometimes they might cause security problems.
Well, I guess all security issues are just kind of like errors under the hood, because an error is like something has happened that was not supposed to happen, or something unexpected has happened, or a thing has happened that we can't deal with. And I guess, under the hood of a lot of security incidents, there's probably a really tasty error trace that, somebody has missed or has gone kind of overlooked. So yeah, we do, it's going to be self-promotional now, I'm sorry, but like Report URI, we kind of effectively do error handling. It's like a very small subset of errors where it's like, there's some code running on the website that wasn't supposed to be there, or the code is doing something that it's not supposed to be doing. And I guess, like, technically they're called violation reports, but they're basically just errors. Like, a thing has happened that was not supposed to happen or hasn't gone the way that we wanted to. And not paying attention to them is, in our particular scenario, inevitably going to lead to something bad happening, maybe like a data breach or some inappropriate access. So yeah, it's like error handling and dealing with errors is, again, it's like so promotional when you run a company that does this, but like it's really important. and it might not even be like specifically analyzing them and dealing with them. It could be something as simple as just like tracking the pattern, right? Like there has been an increase in this particular type of error today. And it's like, well, what changed? Did we deploy a code change? Did the code change have a bug? Or maybe we're being subjected to an attack now that we weren't earlier, and it's causing a whole bunch of errors to happen. So yeah, like a very high level, most people, I think, treat them as like a debugging tool and a debugging piece of information. But actually, I think they can be quite valuable in the realm of security as well.
Scott, do you feel that our industry is super mature and doing a super great job of handling errors, logging, monitoring, and especially alerting and responding when software is being attacked?
Oh, like, yeah, yes and no. Yes, because I think like we have all the tools and the capabilities and the knowledge to do it right, but that it's not being done right at scale. So like, yes, we could, but no, we don't.
So no, okay. Because I was like, yes, tell me about this. Yes, I'm so interested in this. Yes.
Well, it's like we have all the knowledge and the information and tools, and like it's even in the OWASP top 10 now, right? Like having proper logging and handling of errors.
I wrote that part.
And it's like, so we obviously know that it's important. We obviously know that we need to do it. And then because it's in the OWASP top 10, there's a whole buttload of like really good resources on how to do it. And, so if you wanted to, you could know all these things without spending any money, or just some time and learning. Mm-hmm. Yet, frequently I deal with most of our large enterprise customer onboarding, and they're just like, this is like brand new information to us. And this is, like our first foray into this field of gathering all of this error data and centralizing it and monitoring it. So, I guess it's obviously not happening at a large enough scale.
Absolutely. So I helped, so I'm one of the project leaders for the new OWASP top 10, and there are two of the top 10 are this. So one is mishandling of exceptional conditions, which means either you're not doing error handling where you should, or you're doing a bad job of it. That's number 10. And then number 11 is insufficient or improper logging, security logging, and monitoring and alerting. And like we broke it into two because those are two different like kind of functions, if that makes sense. Like, but you can't have good response, alerting, logging, and monitoring if you aren't handling the errors. And it's such a problem. I would like to see our industry do better at this. I gave a talk at Snowfrock, which is an OWASP application security like local event in Denver, and that was in April. And in the beginning, I was like, so who here works in AppSec? And like every hand goes up because it's an AppSec conference. And so I was like, how many of you have to respond to and investigate software incidents sometimes? And about a third of the hands go up. I'm like, okay, so for all of you with your hands down, I'm sorry that you don't know that you are being attacked all the time, because they are. And as an industry, I feel like we have very little visibility into this. So in the book, I put this huge list of when errors become a security incident and when you should be triggering an alert. And some of the examples are like someone calls your API incorrectly over and over again. Because computers don't make typos, right? So the same IP address tries to make several new accounts for the same system in a very short amount of time. The same IP address tries to make more than one account with different email addresses, more than 3 email addresses. Like I do have, I think 4 email addresses right now, like 2 personal ones and 2 work ones. But why would I make so many accounts on the same site? No, right? And it goes on. And I would love it if people would do some of that. But one of the things in this section, so we still have time because we do have to get to cryptography because I have Scott. Because I have Scott with me. So I have to talk about cryptography. Actually, let's just go to that part. Well, okay, so then there's password managers. Dude, we want to talk about that. We should make sure that our apps work in a way where people can use password managers. And what that means is you need to let them copy and paste to and from the password field. And some misguided security person 4,000 years ago said that was a bad idea. And so some developers have not received the memo that password managers are genius. Can you explain what a password manager is and say anything you want about it?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, password managers are super simple in principle. It's somewhere, and it sounds like a terrible idea at the outset, but it's somewhere where you can literally store all of your passwords, but do so in a secure way, right? So instead of having like passwords.txt on our desktop, which would be a terrible idea because as soon as you get a virus or some malware, you are screwed. And yeah, like I use 1Password, no, kind of particular promotion or anything there. It's just they were the best ones that I found at the time, and I've used them ever since. To the point where now, like, I have all my passwords in my password manager. And honestly, like, if somebody stopped me on the street and held a gun to me and was like, "Tell me your Facebook password," I'd be like, I don't know. Like, I literally don't know, right? Because I just copy and paste it out of 1Password into Facebook, hit that enter button, and log in. And there's a zillion different benefits for password managers. The number one thing is I literally have a unique password for every single service. So password reuse is like completely resolved by me running a password manager. Not only are they all unique, they're all like super crazy character combinations and stuff because I don't have to remember them or type them. So they can be super difficult and complex. And it syncs across all my devices, right? So it's like, it doesn't matter if I pick up my phone or my tablet or I'm on my MacBook in the airport. It's like I open 1Password and like there is the password for the website. And a very, very frequent thing that gets thrown back immediately is, well, if your password manager gets compromised, you're screwed.
I know.
And the answer is like, yes, you are. But that's kind of falling into this trap where we view our security posture as this kind of like binary state of either I am secure or I am not secure. And actually it's like a spectrum. It's like a scale of 0 to 10. And it's like, if you have passwords.txt on your desktop, you're at like a 1 out of 10. But if you have a password manager, you're at like an 8 out of 10. And you're still not a 10 out of 10. Like it's not solving all of your problems, but you are considerably better off having the password manager than not having it. And that's all it ever comes to for me is, am I better off not doing this thing? And the answer is like, is having a password manager better? And the answer is yes.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And it's like, is it perfect? No, but it's better than what I had. So I have it. And that's.
If someone compromises your password manager, this means they've compromised one of your important devices completely already. And they've gotten your master password on top of that. And so there's a non-zero chance that they have physical access to you and have hurt you with a wrench or something. So that's possible. And in which case they're going to get any password from you, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's in a password manager or not. They're going to get everything from you if they have physical access to you and they have no morals. But even then, if somehow they got like complete compromise of your device, and then somehow they also got your master password, like they already have everything else. Like they wouldn't have not gotten your other, because people are like, oh, I have these passwords I memorize in my head and I have these different patterns that I use or whatever. Yeah, if someone gets that password, right? Like, because it could be leaked off of any. Yeah, so then you've been doing password reuse and they just do variations on all the other sites. They do a password spray attack or rainbow credential stuffing attack. Like there's 2 names for it. But they do that and then you're toast, right? And it's not safer that way. And also, do you really want to use up the limited amount of memory that you have memorizing hundreds of passwords? Now, what's better than a password, Scott? A passkey, maybe?
Yeah. But, so I did a lot of research over the last kind of month or so. I published a white paper on passkeys and their security and attacking them. And last week, I literally published several blog posts on passkeys. We've open sourced our passkey library that we use at Report URI. So it's one of the very few times when I've actually written code for a problem myself. But passkeys are like they're a relatively new thing, especially in terms of like how old things are on the web platform, and we can still call them new. They're basically brand new. And yeah, like again, it's like the example that I just gave, right? Like they are an amazing step forwards. Are they infallible? No. Are they perfect? No. Are they going to get you to a 10 out of 10? You can go to bed and never get hacked again? No. But are they significantly better than what you have now? And the answer is yes, they are significantly better than what you have now. So do we use them? Yes, because they're significantly better than what we have now. Like, are we done? Can we quit our jobs in cybersecurity and go be, like tree farmers? No, like we still have more things to do, right? So
tree bombers?
Tree farmers. Sorry.
Farmers. Oh, okay.
Like, yeah, I just have this like goal of like growing, because you don't have to do a lot with trees, right? You just plant them and wait like 25 years or something. So
them. They're your little babies. You have to take good care of them. You have to take their fruit off.
Yeah. That'll be me when I finally quit cybersecurity. I'm going to go be a farmer. But yeah, it's like they're a huge step forwards. And I feel passkeys are a lot simpler for like a non-technical person. And, like the equivalent for the password manager thing, like I have my kind of like parents on my side and parents on my wife's side on a password book, right? They just have a little book and they write the website and then the password. And I was like, it's digital. It's like it's super hard for someone to steal it because they have to physically break into their home. And by the time you have somebody physically breaking into your home, you're like, I don't care about the passwords anymore. We have other problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's another one of those things where it's like, look, is it better than what we have? And the answer is yes. So then we should do it.
Mm-hmm.
And is it the final destination? Like, have we solved all security problems? No. Like, we need to keep pushing. Like, there are still issues that we need to resolve. I think people get stuck in that. Well, this doesn't solve security.
It's not perfect, and therefore I want nothing.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's idiocy.
What was the quote? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yes, exactly. So, this only solves 80% of the security problems.
Yeah. But we see that a lot in other fields as well, right? Like this thing does not solve 100% of the issue. So it's like, well, yes, but like it's better to solve 80% of the issue than the current 0.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I also want to talk about how if you're going to design an app, do anything you can instead of passwords. Like do other versions of authentication. Like you can still do good security and use passkeys. You can do great security and do SSO, like single sign-on. Like you could do, so a new thing that I see all the time, Scott, is called device flow authentication. And I don't remember actually if I put the name of it in the book because I only learned the name of it. I learned the name of it at B-Side San Francisco because a woman was presenting on it and she's like, I don't know what this is called. And so I did a call on my socials while she was talking and people informed me that's what it's called. And so device flow authentication is where you get the magic link. So you go to log in and you click a button you put your email and then it emails you a link and then it brings you into the thing and it works. And this is particularly great for things like if you're trying to log in on a streaming device on your television and you're like, click, 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 trying to put in my 5 billion long password thing, right? And you can't use your password manager on like a Roku or whatever streamer thingamajig you're using. And so then you take this picture and you just device flow authenticate, because it's like you have the device, you have access to the email, you're clearly the person, right? And so it's using 2 factors to show you're you. And I feel like, so people hate MFA. We hate entering a code. We're like, why must you make me do this? You mean computer person. So whatever you can do to do a second factor that isn't that, like fingerprinting their device and their network and their IP address. When I worked at, I worked at the dreaded Shared Services Canada. And I remember when I would walk onto campus, it would recognize the certificate on my device. And then I had a badge, there was RFID, and you'd go in and then it's like, you're in. Like if I can log into the computer, I'm on everything because I have all these different things identifying me. And whenever possible, usernames and passwords, they kind of suck.
It's in the blog post that you linked, thank you. Like one of the things that I said was like, we've not been using email and password because they're amazing and awesome and everyone loves them. We've been using them because they were the only option. So it's not like, we sat down and we're like, yeah, we nailed it. Usernames and passwords. Like this is, 100%, let's do this forever. And passkeys are a massive step forward in that regard. Because they just remove a huge amount of the complexity. They remove the need for users to remember things or reproduce things. And they take it obviously the biggest benefit of passkeys has to be that they're like ultra phishing resistant. They're basically like unphishable. We're pretty much into the realm of like phishing will no longer be a concern if you have passkeys. And that is probably one of the biggest threats to most users right now is phishing.
Oh yeah.
So there are like vast and very meaningful benefits to passkeys. And the only, the remainder of the concerns are then for us technical folks, like how do users sync them across devices? How do we make sure, if you're on Apple like me, on my phone and tablet, I'm on Windows on the desktop, it's like if I create a passkey on my Apple device and I sync it to iCloud Keychain, it's like, how would I then get access to that on the Windows platform? Now,
I was going to ask you, like, how do you use passkeys without a password manager? Because 1Password just magically handles this for me and I don't have to think about it at all.
And this is my solution to the problem also. Like I'm 1Password all the way. My passkey goes into 1Password and then it's immediately available across the platforms. But I can very easily see a scenario, especially with non-technical users, where they create the passkey on their iPhone and it syncs it to like iCloud Keychain and they don't really understand the distinction. And then they go to log in from their Windows computer and they type in, their email address and it's like, you don't have a passkey to log in here. So like I said, it's still a young technology. I think there's still things to keep working on and we can keep improving it, but it's already better than what we have now. So it's the time to start using it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, it's time for cryptography.
Let's nerd out.
So I didn't actually write that much about cryptographic password practices. It's basically, if there's a policy where you work, you should follow it. We should only send things over encrypted channels. In it, I say, I wish I could tell you I was an encryption expert and I know the answers, but I'm not. But guess what? I know who the experts are. So what do you want to say about cryptography?
I think we're many years past the point now where everybody understands the value and the need for encryption. I remember being kind of right at the forefront of this industry like 10 years ago when we were still trying to convince the world that encryption was a good idea. And, it's really, I keep having this thing, Tanya, maybe you have this problem as well, where I'm like in a room of people and I'm talking about something and then I realize that all of their years of birth start with the number 2. And I'm like, God damn it. Like I need to contextualize this now because, we're grown-ups. That's what we are.
If you were born with it, it's hard for you to imagine it not existing.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I try to explain, I would go to meet someone, and if they didn't show up, I'd just have to wait longer because there was no cell phone to text them. And
I keep having
there
this
were
with
no
my kid.
texts either. And you know what I mean? Or I would have to, walk however many blocks to a payphone. And if I didn't have the right change, well, then I guess I don't get to use it. All sorts of silly things like that. And people are just like, but couldn't you just Google Map that? Well, about that.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like my kid comes from school and there's like 500 million messages being sent about arranging to meet. And I'm like, we just went to school and said, like, we'll be at the park at 5 p.m. And then if nobody was at the park at 5 p.m., they didn't get to play. Like that was it.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like, well, I guess I'm going to play by myself. Maybe some other kid will show up that I don't know yet.
But yeah, like the whole kind of context on like why I'm kind of glad that we now have a generation coming through where like everything is just encrypted and it's not really a thing that we talk about anymore. And that's amazing. Like that's where we wanted to get encryption to, was to the point where it was boring. And I always kind of compare it. And I know like talking about Elon Musk is a super controversial thing, but like just like purely looking at kind of like, let's forget about him, like SpaceX. Them launching all of these rockets and landing them. I remember watching that at the beginning and being like, that is a technological feat of amazingness. They just like blasted this basically like super tall building into space, and then they landed this building size thing back on the ground. And like, that's awesome. And there was an interview where he was like, we want to make this boring. We want to do this like so well and so frequently and so just like all the time, everyone is like, I am bored of what was like this previously amazing feat. And I was like, we need to get encryption to a point where it's boring, where basically people just stop talking about it because it is so normal and so common, and finally get it to the point where we don't even think about it anymore. And we're very close. Like we're not there, but 10 years ago, HTTPS, you used to get a green padlock and the word secure, and it was amazing and it was special. And now if you look at any address bar of any browser, it doesn't even say HTTPS anymore. There's no padlock icon. There's no green, because
it just
encryption is becoming boring.
Because if you're going to go to a place that's unencrypted, they're like, nah.
Yeah. And now it's
you don't want to go
kind
there.
of the other way around. The example I always give, like, so I have I literally have a 2-day training course on encryption, so I can literally talk about encryption for 2 days. And the example that I commonly give is, it's kind of like in your car, right? You gave a car analogy earlier. In your car, you don't have like a green check mark on the dashboard that says everything with your car is okay. Like that's your default expectation. You get in the car, you start the car, and like everything should be fine. But when there is a problem with your car, you have like a variety of different lights that will come on the dashboard, and they will vary in how expensive they are to fix. But it will tell you when there is a problem that you need to be aware of. But the expectation is the rest of the time there is no indicator, because everything is okay. And we're finally getting to that stage with encryption now, where it's like the default expectation is that everything is okay, and you will only get a warning when there is a problem that we need to tell you about. And that's like a real tipping point in, the kind of the approach to encryption, where not many years ago, you used to get special indicators that were like, "Woo, this thing is encrypted because this is special and it needs to be applauded." And now it's like, no, that's like the minimum baseline of my expectation is that everything is encrypted. So it has been interesting to see that. It's also interesting to speak to people now that use the web and are software engineers and builders, and they don't have any recollection of their like websites run on HTTP. And I'm like, oh, geez, I've been in this industry too long, Tanya.
Could you briefly talk about the EFF and Let's Encrypt for those who might not be familiar, and how awesome that is?
Yeah, I think I have a whole module on this. I think most people look at Let's Encrypt, and for those unfamiliar, they're a certificate authority. So Let's Encrypt is a certificate authority, and they issue certificates to websites. And if you want HTTPS on your website, one of the prerequisites of doing that is that you have to have a certificate for, shehackspurple.ca. And the problem with that is, like, for all of time, since they've existed, they cost money. So you want HTTPS on your website, you want the green padlock, you have to go spend like $100 per year on a certificate. And this financial barrier was stopping a lot of people from deploying encryption because, you're like, well, it's just my blog. It's like my blog, right? It's just my ramblings on the internet, and maybe I encrypt them, maybe I don't, because it's no big deal. And especially then when somebody's like, oh, now you have to pull out your credit card and spend like $100 a year on this certificate, then I'm like, okay, this is definitely not happening because I don't want to spend that money.
It was more. It was like 200.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Because I'm a Canadian and the exchange.
Yeah. You definitely got to fork out the dollary dues. And I actually remember when Let's Encrypt launched, and I want to say I was at DEF CON in 2014 when like some of the founding members of Let's Encrypt were doing a panel discussion. And obviously this is like immediately in the post-Snowden era. Snowden revelations have just happened. We've just learned about PRISM and the other Dragnet surveillance programs. And they were like, okay, like everybody needs to use this encryption thing, but not everybody's going to want to spend hundreds of dollars a year on certificates. So we're going to build a certificate authority. And instead of selling certificates for hundreds of dollars each, we're going to give them away for free. And I've never been in a room with like a couple thousand people and heard like nothing. Everyone was just like they said free. There's like, they're going to remove this vastly enormous financial barrier. And it's kind of weird, right? Because it's like, well, if you want privacy online, you need encryption. And if you need encryption, you have to have a certificate. And if you have to have a certificate, you have to have money. It's like there's this weird link between like, you want privacy online, show me the dollars. And they were going to eradicate that barrier. Now, my controversial side opinion on this is that that's not the most important thing that Let's Encrypt did. And I think they did something more important. And Yan Zhu, who was talking in the panel discussion at the time, she was talking about this. And everyone was like, the most important thing Let's Encrypt ever did was remove the cost, right? They took away the cost barrier. There is no more take out your credit card step. But back then, if we can remember this far back, Tanya, in our wisdom, certificates could be valid for like 1 or 2 or 3 years. So you could like buy a 3-year certificate, install it, forget about it for 3 years. And the problem was
then sell your site.
Yeah, and that was another issue as well. And Jan said, we're going to issue these certificates and they're going to be for free. And instead of being valid for like 3 years and 3 months, they're going to be valid for 90 days. And again, like literally a room with like 1,000 something people were like, what? Did you just say 90 days?
Because it's a lot of work to switch your certificates manually all the time.
So much work. And that was exactly the point, was basically they kind of looked at this and said, well, we need everybody in the world to do encryption, which means by extension, we need everybody in the world to do certificates. And there are not enough humans to do that manually. The only way that this process scales is if it's automated. So by choosing 90 days, they said, we basically looked at this and we were like, what number is crazy enough that no one will try and do it manually? Because it's like, this is untenable. And they were like, 90 days. If you had to renew your certificate then ideally you renew it a month before it expires. So that's like 60 days.
Yeah.
They were like, no one is going to try and do that manually. So they created the demand for automation. They were like, this process has to be automated. Otherwise it's unmanageable at scale. But nobody wants to do the automation because it's hard. So we're going to, the analogy I was giving the training is like, they had the stick and they were like, so we can either beat the people with the stick and tell them to do encryption because it's a good idea, or we can use the stick to dangle a carrot and be like, oh, why don't you come on this little automation journey? And there's a much nicer way of using the stick, right? Same outcome. Everybody does what you want. But one of them is like, we can hit them with the stick. And the other one is we can dangle the carrot with the stick. And they chose the dangle the carrot option because they were like, come and get your free certificates. But by the way, you have to automate it because they're too short. And for me, that was the most important thing that Let's Encrypt did. It was not actually free certificates. It was that they created the demand for automation. And now, literally a decade later, automation is commonplace. But it wouldn't have been if they hadn't done what they did and made that kind of crazy decision at the beginning when everyone's like, what are you doing? 90 days, this is stupid. And yeah, like I think that's the most important thing that they did. And now it's super commonplace and trivial and easy to do certificate renewal in an automated fashion. But it took us 10 years to get there. And it took Let's Encrypt starting that.
Do you think everyone is? So the renewal is automated, but actually switching the certificate, rebooting the servers and all of that, is that automated?
It's getting much easier now because we have so that Let's Encrypt also spearheaded the standardization of a protocol called ACME, which allows you to do the automated certificate renewals. Then once you've done that part, the kind of, deploying the certificate and reloading the process to pull the new certificate in is a much easier step in a overall difficult process. So I'm hoping that like the next kind of steps after that become much, much easier. The difficult thing is, number one, obtaining the certificate, and then number two, deploying it to where it needs to be. Hopefully, the final step in that process, you're right, is you have to, reload the server, reload the process, restart the whatever it is. But yeah, by the time you get there, you've done all of the hard work. You're on the final kind of tidy up steps. So it's still a consideration. It depends on your platform. If you're using IIS, like we use Nginx across the fleet, and you can reload the process and load the new certificate in without interrupting the service. So like zero downtime deployment, great. Not everybody's in that scenario, right? Like you might have some interruption to service to reload the certificate. But again, it's one of those things. It's like, is everything awesome now? Yes. Can we make it better? Also, yes. So let's continue to make it better.
Absolutely. I agree with you that both of those things are fantastic. I'm very pleased with when Let's Encrypt came out. I was just like, what?
It's groundbreaking.
I remember, yeah. So memory safe languages. So this is the last topic that I want to do very briefly before we do the questions at the end of the chapter. But essentially, I want to encourage everyone, if you're listening, if you get to choose the programming language that you are going to do, if you could choose a memory safe language, please do. I know lots of us have to work in C and C++ because there's legacy software built in it. But if we're going to build something new, if you could build it in Rust or something else that's memory safe, you'll just have so many fewer problems. I don't know if you want to add anything else onto that, Scott, but I really want people to do that if they can.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'm quite lucky, apart from at university when I was studying, I've never had to use, a kind of dangerous language. But I guess they teach you how to play with knives before how to play with safe things afterwards, just so you can avoid all of the problems. But yeah, like you're 100% correct in what you say. I think we're seeing an explosion in languages like Rust now. We're seeing a lot, especially with like the kind of, we're going to say AI, but especially with like a lot of the kind of super advances in AI right now. Porting an existing application from one language to another is previously like a very, very laborious job that has become a lot easier. And I think there are some things, like I think AI is still a tad overhyped right now. It's been very overhyped for a long time. But I think taking an application or even a tool or a script and porting it from one language to another is something that AI would be very, very helpful with. So maybe we'll see an acceleration in the rate of changes like that, of things being rewritten in memory safe languages. But yeah, it's better to obviously, it's easy to say, oh, you should have just written it in the right language from the beginning. But Rust is, again, in the age of the web.
I don't think we can say that to someone, oh, well, you should have used Rust 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's, but yeah, like, it's easy on a greenfield site. Any greenfield application right now that you're building is so easy to do so many things right. The problem is I've not yet worked with a customer that's building like on a greenfield site. It's like, okay, so we have this application and it's been running for like 12 years. And now we need to retrofit all of this security stuff to it. Yeah, that usually includes the language it was written in.
It's so true. The first question for the chapter exercises is there ever an appropriate reason to use a language that is not memory safe? And the answer is yes, because it's already written in that language.
Yeah.
And you're updating it, you're fixing it, you're doing whatever, and you just don't have the money, time, resources, permission to rewrite it. So of course you're going to, like if someone's like, hey, Scott, fix a bug in this, you're not going to be like, just give me a few weeks because I'm going to rewrite it in Rust.
Rewrite the whole application.
Your boss is so going to be okay with that. No. So the next question was number 2. So applications written in strongly typed programming languages are always more secure than weakly typed programming languages, true or false? And I put false. We didn't talk about strongly typed and weakly typed, but basically you can make a mistake in any language, and whether you find it in runtime or you find it when you compile, you're still screwed.
Yeah. You can be dumb in any language that you want. Like that's
exactly.
That's yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so number 3, you're going to really like this one, Scott. Data should be encrypted in transit, at rest, or both?
All of them. All the time. All the time.
Yes.
And we're finally at a point where like that's a reasonable thing to say. Like that's not a wild pipe dream of a security person anymore. We can do that.
Yes, we can, and we can afford it now.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to talk for 2 seconds? I know, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be wrapping up, but quantum computing and encryption.
Yeah, it's so we've started to introduce modules on this in the cryptography course now, because obviously everybody's kind of interest has been piqued by recent news coverage and papers that have been published and research that's been done. And I think that we're making a mistake again right now that we've made a lot of times before. And like we have a whole module on this pattern. So not the actual quantum computing mistake, but it's the same type of mistake that we've made many, many times before, where over the last like 20 years. So we first got TLS and encryption on the web in 1994, right? So we've literally been doing this for a really long time, but we keep making the same mistake over and over again, where we might be using something like SSL version 3, right? And everyone's like, oh, we're using SSL version 3. And then some people will do some research and say, well, this doesn't look very good anymore. It's kind of getting a bit old and a bit weak. And we have these suspicions that somebody might be able to break it or do bad stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, so is there anything wrong with it? And it's like, well, no, not right now, but soon. And they're like, oh, so we can keep using it. There's nothing wrong with it. And then we keep using it literally until the day that it breaks in production, like it did in 2015. And then it's like, oh my God, we have this major incident because it's literally broken and we're all still using it today. Right. And we have like many different examples of this. Like we did the exact same thing with the MD5 hash algorithm, with the SHA-1 hash algorithm, where we keep using these things until the day that they literally fail in production. And then we have an incident and everybody has to go to work and respond to the incident.
Boo. Boo on working overtime. Boo on having emergencies that we knew better.
I know, right? And especially when you can foresee these things coming. So I think that we have a very similar issue with post-quantum cryptography right now, where everyone's like, okay, but classical encryption is fine. Like no one has a viable quantum computer yet. So what's the big deal? Like we can keep using classical cryptography because it's fine. And I'm like, right, but like we're doing the exact same thing again, where it's kind of like if you were a bridge inspector and that, you know, everyone's like, okay, but the bridge is going to like break soon or fall into the river or whatever. And it's like, okay, but does the bridge work now? Yes. Okay, we'll just keep using the bridge. And you're like, no, like
no one would accept that answer.
Yes. Like you should stop using the thing before it fails, right? Like my other analogy, because you made a car reference earlier, is it's like only servicing your vehicle once it breaks down and leaves you at the side of the road, right? Like the reason that we do routine maintenance and servicing is so that it doesn't fail and leave us at the side of the road. But that means that you're spending money on your vehicle and doing things when there's nothing wrong with it. It's preventative, right? Like, and
it's because later it will be more expensive.
Correct. And this
if we
is
let it blow
thing.
up in our face, it costs more and hurts
worse.
more.
And it leaves you stranded at the side of the road.
Yeah.
So I think...
Is it expensive to implement the post-quantum algorithms?
Not to like the problem. So no, like it's not. The problem that we've got right now is like we need to do the groundwork in getting them ready for widespread use. And whilst a lot of that work is happening and some really amazing work is happening, like it's not enough and it's not fast enough. So like that, you know, we're eventually going to get there. We're going to have like proven post-quantum primitives and they'll be widely available and usable. But like there's a lot of legwork that needs to be done by the industry to standardize them and get them ready. And right now I feel like we could be making better progress on that. We should be making better progress on that, but we're not. The other problem will then be once they are standardized and ready, people need to then start using them and migrating to them. And that's going to be difficult, because if we can have like this, like everybody in our industry is really good at fixing things when, you know, the stuff hits the fan, right? Like everybody will fix something once the incident is happening. But generally speaking, it's hard to motivate people to put effort into things before there's a big problem.
But what if we make it so that it's, so if we're going to have to be updating our certificates, we're going to have to be updating this, we're going to like, if we could make it so that the process wasn't that painful. So it's like, you know, just do one server every week, or, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, there's definitely components of that where we can, but it's, the first thing is going to be awareness of the problem. You know, how do we communicate that to effectively everyone on earth that runs a website or an application, right? It's like, oh, hey, you should start migrating your configurations over the next 3 years. Take it easy, be nice and slow. But it's building that momentum. The other issue that I've got that I feel is like way more overlooked is, and we already know that the NSA could do this back in 2013 in the Snowden revelations, because we literally read about it, where, you know, these governments will record encrypted traffic. So you're emailing me, right? And like they will record the encrypted email, and they will look at that email today and say, this email is so well encrypted that we can't break it and we can't read it. But they will keep hold of that encrypted email, because next year or the year after, or maybe 3 years from now, they're like, oh, so we built this new quantum computer that can now just like smash that encryption in seconds.
we can finally see Tanya and Scott being nerds together.
And all they had to do was record the encrypted email and sit on it until a later date. So everybody's looking at all of our communications now and saying, well, they don't have a quantum computer, so they can't read my emails. They can't break the encryption on my emails. And I'm like, well, no, all they have to do is like record the encrypted email and sit on it for 3 years. So it's not about, like, most people kind of look at the live communication being broken. So you're going to email me now and they're going to break the encryption now, but they can't because they don't have a quantum computer. And I was like, well, all they have to do is sit on it until they do. You know, like this is how they got Snowden's emails back in 2013, 2014. It was, they'd previously recorded everybody's emails, and they go rummaging through and they pick out Snowden's and they're like, can we break the encryption on them? But that's in a historic context. So if they're still recording our emails now, and they build a quantum computer in 5 years, they could be reading all of your emails, because the encryption that you're using now is not quantum resistant. And that's my bigger concern, is like people are kind of, there's a couple of pieces of the story that you need to thread together there to understand quantum computers don't become a threat once they exist. Quantum computers are a threat now, even though they don't exist.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It's just going to hurt us later.
Yeah. And the great thing is, you know, we talk about the kind of psychology of this in the course, but it's like human beings are incredibly good at responding to a negative stimulus. This is why we're really good at fixing something once it's broken, but not before. And the problem is, by the time this burns us, it's already too late to fix the problem.
Hyperbolic discounting, present bias. I write about it in my blog. Dun, 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 dun.
It's a very unfortunate set of circumstances that will unfortunately result in us being bit in the butt more than we would have to be.
I agree, Scott. I totally agree. Thank you. Thank you for the rant, because I knew you would do it.
I'll get off my soapbox now. I'm sorry.
No. I asked you to do it. Okay. So question 4, blocking the ability of your users to paste into the password field makes it more difficult for users to use password managers and makes it statistically more likely that your users will use shorter, less complex passwords. True or false, Scott?
So as a general rule, true. Like you should allow people to paste, because like there's only one, and it's like such an edge case scenario, but like there's only one scenario where I've even been remotely convinced that blocking paste was a good idea, but I still think it's a bad idea. This was a very long time ago. I did some research on a product for a company that was doing something called behavioral biometrics.
Okay.
And they would look at your typing pattern for your email address and your password. And it turns out like everyone has a unique way that they interact with their keyboard.
Yeah.
And you could give me your password and I would go try log into the website, but I would type the password different to how you type it. So we have like different dwell times on the keys. We have a different space time between the keys because we have unique fingers and interaction profiles. And they were like, well, we have to block paste because we need to look at how Tanya is typing the password to see if it's Tanya typing the password. And if you paste it, it breaks that. Now, I just think that's really weird and spooky anyway, and we probably shouldn't do that. So I'm going to go with true. I agree with you. We should not block passwords being pasted. But that's the only one edge case scenario where I was mildly convinced that blocking paste was a good idea.
If you wanted to study that, I see. Yeah. Okay, so number 5, privacy includes not being interrupted when you are alone. It means not being tracked across the internet. It means not having your private data sold without your knowledge. Privacy, as defined here in this book, is currently being violated by many websites and web apps across the internet every day. True or false?
True.
Yeah. Sad, but true.
Unfortunately.
But hopefully people will read this book and they'll start asking more questions in meetings and talking about things, and maybe there'll be less of that. 6, databases need to be protected from several different angles, not just from database injection vulnerabilities such as SQL injection. True or false?
True.
Yeah, they're really hard questions. 7, we don't need to label or classify our data. We don't need to label our data after we classify it because everyone should just know what classification is by looking. Labeling is redundant and not necessary. True or false?
False.
Yeah.
I wish everything was obvious and easy.
I know, right?
But it's not.
It's not. 8, source code is intellectual property, and you should take precautions to protect it. True or false?
Yep.
True. 8, deserialization can be avoided by never accepting untrusted serialized objects. True or false?
Deserialization. Deserialization can be avoided by never accepting.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, true. Yeah. So like,
as a business requirement, can you get away with that?
Yes.
But it's true. If you never accept a serialized object, you can never.
You can't have a deserialization bugs.
The point of that question was to say, if you don't have to accept it, please don't. Yeah. You must, because of the protocol, and that's your business is running the protocol. You must, but we don't always need to. Sometimes we're just like, oh, I'll just serialize this and toss it over to you, and it's easier. And it's like, actually about that. Yeah. 10, it's okay to use production data in a testing environment because we trust our employees. True or false?
Sure, why not? Let's do it. Let's throw caution to the wind, Tanya. We're all over this. Let's go.
False. Slam. We did it, Scott, and you passed the test. Yes.
I'm a certified professional.
Oh, Scott, thank you. This was wonderful. Can you please tell people where they could find more, Scott? So I'm going to put your website up. So I'm putting the training link, but if you just go to scotthelme.co.uk, but
yep.
Where could they get more, Scott? Do you perhaps have a newsletter?
So subscribing to my blog is usually the way. I kind of blog everything that I do. So my research on passkeys recently is kind of like varied. It's always cybersecurity focused, or cars, or smart tech. But like, you know, that's definitely the number one place. And then the regular social media platforms are all linked on my site. So yeah, I would definitely say that's like the central hub to get access to everything else.
Awesome. Is there a place where people could see you speak? Like, for instance, might you be at DEF CON this summer or other places where you are going to be?
Yeah, on the sidebar of my blog, or down at the bottom if you're on mobile, there is an upcoming event section where I have all of my public engagements. I'm trying to organize DEF CON this year. Still not announced because it's like still tentative. But there's definitely several other conferences on there. I'm going to try and get to OWASP AppSec EU. I'm going to BSides London.
This month? You'll be in Vienna?
I'm trying to get, I'm tempted to go for just a couple of days just to meet cool people.
Well, I'm going to be there. You could meet me. I'm kind of cool.
There we go. So yeah, like that's, again, it's not currently announced because I'm I'm just like, I'm so busy, and travel eats time like crazy. So yeah, like if I could just teleport to this event for a day, I would be at most events. But
Oh, yeah.
unfortunately, we have these really slow things called airplanes, and they just kill my time. And yeah, I'm trying to fit in as many as I can.
Well, once you make a teleporter, you let me know, because then we could totally hang out so much more often.
Yep. We could do coffees like every Tuesday, right? Like it would be so amazing. So
Oh
yeah,
my gosh, that
I'm
would be
looking
really
forward to
cool.
it.
Scott, thank you so much for coming on.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Thank you everyone for coming. I'm Tanya. I wrote this book. I hope that you like it. I have a blog too. If you look up She Acts Purple, all of that stuff is me. I give training too, but my training's very different than Scott. So if you want some cryptography, you really want Scott. If you want secure coding, you probably want me. Scott, this has been a pleasure every time. It's great.
Always is.
I really appreciate you. And I'm bad at saying goodbye, so we're just going to all wave goodbye now.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.